This episode of Bradley's House Podcast is brought to you in part by our friends at HayGoodFarms.com. HayGood Farms' goal has always been to provide hemp products that improve your quality of life, and their process is really the difference maker. HayGood Farms handles your product from the dirt all the way to delivery. This ensures a top quality product every time. And all their hemp comes from the same process, from the same facility, ensuring consistency in every order. Check out HayGoodFarms.com. That's HayGoodFarms.com. And check out their incredible line of gummies, cartridges, oils, skincare, capsules, and even a line of products for our furry friends in the pet care section. The point of using CBD is to make sure that you're not putting bad stuff into your body. So check out HayGoodFarms.com. You can see their lab results, reviews, and read more about their process and what makes HayGoodFarms.com the leader in the CBD and hemp industry. We thank HayGood Farms for sponsoring this podcast and working with the Nowell Family Foundation in getting Bradley's House open to help us in our war against opioids.
Hi, this is Anna from Canada, and you're listening to the Bradley's House Podcast.
Nothing is impossible, but certain things are highly improbable. Don't think I'll meet your kind again, not in this lifetime.
Hey guys, welcome back. Come on in, make yourself at home as you should when you're a guest in Bradley's house. I am your co-host, Jarett Orr. She is the executive director of the Nowell Family Foundation, and our host, Ms. Kellie Nowell. Kellie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jarett. How are you?
I'm good, Kellie. I'm good. I went to the store early this morning. I bought all of the things that are a necessity for spring cleaning. So
and then who's going to do that spring cleaning?
Fuck, it's the only part I haven't figured out yet. But I got all of the stuff is what I'm saying. So, right, like you
got the easy part done.
The intentions were that, listen, I walked in, I grabbed the cart like a boss. I'm sponging. I'm like, this cleaner foams up. Fuck yeah, I need that one. Give me that. So like, now I've got like all these extra bags in my house filled with the cleaning products that I will probably use, but it didn't feel right doing that before we recorded. So
no, I'm so glad you waited. That was definitely a good move because now you have something to look forward to.
It's like my treat. It's like the dessert after an incredible dinner. I'm really looking forward to it. So
I can tell by the enthusiasm in your voice.
But before that, what I'm looking forward to, of course, is another episode of Bradley's House Podcast. Kellie, we've been having some amazing episodes. We've been getting some great feedback. So many people have been posting and sharing. I certainly appreciate that, and I don't think that today will be any different. Once again, Kellie, you've lined up another amazing, exciting guest for us to all get to know. Who is our guest today in Bradley's House?
Today, I'm super excited to have on someone who's not just a friend, but also has a big part of the Nowell Family Foundation history that many people may not know about, probably have heard me talk about, but didn't realize that this was the man responsible for that. So today we have with us my good friend and the executive director of Aspire in San Luis Obispo. He's also the co-owner of From War to Peace, which does a great Bradley's Wave piece and donates a portion of the proceeds to the foundation. So anyway, we'll let everybody know how to find all that stuff in a minute. But first, let's welcome Tom Buckley to the show. Tom, thank you so much for being on.
Hi, Kellie. Hi, Jarett. Thank you for having me.
We are very excited. As I mentioned, and let's just get this out of the way, when we first started the Nowell Family Foundation in July of 2017, we really had no idea what we were going to do, how we were going to get the message out. even, how we were going to get the house open, none of it. It was just, you know what, let's just get started and see where it goes. And one of the first people to reach out was you, and you were a Sublime fan. We didn't know each other. And you sent me a message and said, hey, I'm putting together this community event in Orange County for opioid awareness. And we'd love to have you come and be a part of it. I think you asked if I wanted to speak or something. And I'm like, no, you don't want me. You want my dad for sure. That was my way of subtly getting out of it. So I think we did, right? We had my dad speak, and I think even Todd spoke. Is that right? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, it was an amazing event. I appreciate you so much for even responding to me. I think I had to slide into your DMs to get your attention there. And
that's pathetic.
I know.
How it all
I got a response, and it was great. You guys came and met with us over at, it was the company Pacific Solstice, I believe, where we were doing behavioral health services out in Orange County. And you met with us, and we found out what your mission was, and went and brought it to the community. And man, your dad was amazing that night.
Wasn't he fantastic? It was a lot of fun. And for us as a foundation, it was really validating because, as I mentioned, it was the first event that we actually did. And so it was kind of scary. I thought, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? What are we going to say? But it was a real, for us, a launching off point. And so I will always be grateful to you, Tom, for making that happen.
Thank you. And I'm grateful that you guys were a part of it. I remember when we had our business strategy meeting at Pacific Solstice on how we were going to outreach to the community, and everyone had these ideas to market that were really contrived, and everyone was doing it, and it was watered down. And the concept for us was, let's not do that. Let's do something different. Let's provide free services to the community for the day. And so we got all these amazing organizations to come out that day. We had a taco guy that was giving out free tacos, people doing HIV testing, Hep C testing, providing, doing a needle exchange, providing Narcan and Narcan trainings, signing people up for groups and services. And then we also had the forum where we got to speak about Bradley's house, and your dad spoke about losing Brad, and it was just so powerful. The whole day was so powerful, and showed me that there's different ways that we can promote a business and help the community at the same time.
Absolutely. And it was really well attended, and so many people were grateful for the event. And some who were struggling with addiction, some who had kids that were struggling, or friends or family members, or had lost somebody. It was a really powerful event. You did a great job with that. So do you still work in the recovery industry, or are you more on the mental health side?
Yeah, I work now as the executive director at Aspire Counselling Service in San Luis Obispo, and we provide both mental health and addiction treatment services for folks out here in this community.
That's fantastic. That's quite a calling, I think, to be able to work in that field and help people out. And you've been doing it for so long. You're definitely to be commended for that. And you're a musician also, which I thought was so cool when I found that out. A very talented musician, in fact. Do you still play very often?
Not as much as I would like to, but I still get out with my friends and make music, and it's definitely the way that I find inner peace and deal with the stress of work and everything else. So, but I miss the stage. I miss performing, that's for sure.
I'll bet. Well, I remember the first time I heard your music, and I thought, oh, I'm probably going to have to be like, oh, it's so good, and not really mean it. But I was so surprised. It was very good. A lot of people will be like, hey, listen to my song. And, they're not always, they're not always as enjoyable to listen to as you were. Just say that.
I remember you telling me that, and you always had the most gracious responses to those situations. And that made me gulp when I heard that, like, oh God, now I don't want to send her my music. But
But you did. And go ahead.
Your brother was such an influence.
Mm.
When I was a young man, growing up in San Luis Obispo, I was providing the good students of Cal Poly with their cannabis needs,
Nice way
and
to say
so
it.
yeah, and I was over at a frat party when I was about 15 years old or 16 years old, and the guys were nice enough to invite me in after I sold them some swag weed, and and all of a sudden there was this band playing in this smoke-filled room that was totally packed of college kids, and a sound that I had never heard before and immediately resonated with, and it was your brother in Sublime.
Mm.
And
Wow.
it changed the way that I heard music and played music forever.
Were
Now,
you
for
already?
all of our younger listeners who aren't familiar, swagweed is a thing. Back in the day, you used to have to pluck seeds out of your dirty brown weed, and after you plucked out all the seeds and the stems, maybe you had some weed left. So, just for our younger viewers or listeners who may not be familiar, continue.
Very
Yeah,
educational of you. Thank you, Jarett.
we had to pull the seeds out by candlelight. It was that long ago, actually.
In the snow, up home.
Yeah. No,
So were
you're
you
right.
already
Yeah.
playing music of your own at that point, or were you just getting started?
Yeah, no, I was a young, fat, emotional kid that started writing poetry and singing songs at like in sixth grade. And
Wow.
yeah, and but man, everything really changed once I was always a fan of oldies and classics, and I was a fan of Bob Marley and
Mm.
Peter Tosh and all the older roots reggae guys, but I'd never even had the concept of blending genres. And boy, did that just change the way that I wanted to play music at that point.
That's
If there wasn't a
fantastic.
better representation of growing up in California on the coast than Bradley's
Yeah.
Sublime, I don't know what is.
Yeah, they did definitely embody that vibe. And what was the name of your
Absolutely.
band?
The band that I played in Orange County in LA for years was called Pacific Coast High. So
Nice.
that's a rock, reggae, hip hop group. And my brother actually, who's very talented, was the DJ in that band.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
My brother came off tour. He was on tour with Cat Williams as an opening DJ for a couple of
Wow.
years, and came and lived with me, and we started Pacific Coast High and had a lot of fun playing all the clubs and venues in Southern California.
Oh, I'll bet. And then how did you get into working in the recovery industry?
Oh boy. So I had kids at a young age, and from a one night stand, twins, because
Twin
that's how lucky I
boys.
am. Yep, that's right.
Wonderful young men, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
I
very
feel like this
proud.
is another service announcement time here, but I'll let you continue.
Absolutely. No, I could tell you stories that would make people put a condom on just listening to this. Anyway, I digress. So I had kids at a young age, and it helped me realize quickly that I needed to get my shit together, and I did not want to pass on to them the same that was passed on to me. The
Mm.
Buckleys have a long line of addiction. We have in our family crest, we have a whiskey bottle and a meth pipe, I believe, and so
Are we cousins?
I told you, Jarett. I knew it. I could just tell, just from listening to your past episodes.
Oh my God.
I'll see you at the picnic, brother. This summer.
Reunion.
I'm bringing the potato salad.
Excellent. So yeah, having the kids at a young age forced me to make some hard decisions and to get my shit together.
Yeah.
And just like everyone that gets their shit together, what do they want to do? Immediately jump right into helping other people before they're ready and have core boundaries. And so that's what I did and have been doing for the last 16 years. My first job, I was driving kids I'd pick them up from school and take them to their back to their recovery home where they were there for addiction issues. And that place is still there today and does a lot of good work. So that I really
Nice.
cut my teeth at that place, and that was where I decided, okay, I want to do this for a career, and went back to school and pursued social work and drug and alcohol counseling.
Fantastic. And when you were a musician, did you see a lot of the challenges with drug use, or some of the struggles that people go through that are specific to the music industry?
Yeah, I have such crippling stage fright. I threw up 6 times before doing this call.
No.
No, I'm just joking. But I do have such crippling stage fright that using and being intoxicated and, being messed up was how I was able to perform. And so it was so ingrained into my creative, system. And I saw that with all of my musicians. And I actually had to take a long break from music when I was starting out in recovery and therapy and kind of working through my issues until I was strong enough to be around it. But yeah, I saw a lot of people that did the same thing, and it's encouraged,
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Most people would never think that someone who is a musician on stage deals with stage fright.
Yeah. Most of the best, musicians I know or entertainers I know deal with it.
Yeah.
I think one of the best tools I've ever been told is if you can keep telling your brain that you're excited instead of nervous, that there's a little bit of a brain hack you can do there to at least get you up there. And then once we get started, we all become the hams that we're born to be.
No, it's true. It does help to frame it differently so that you associate that feeling with excitement as opposed to fear, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So at what point did you decide that you needed to change your ways?
My kids were about 2, and I had been struggling for the last 2 years since they were born. Saying I was going to quit and then not, and saying I was going to quit and then not, and starting, a road of positive goals, and then quickly shifting gears and thinking I was going to be the next big Scarface or drug kingpin. And then, I had this moment. It's a strange moment, but I was at a fork in the road, a literal fork in the road. I was in this little beat up pickup truck I had, and I had come to the end of this road where I either was going to go left or right, and something hit me like, this is my fork in the road, and I need to make a decision now. And if I was going to keep doing what I was going to do, I didn't want to be around my kids and poison them. And I decided to go the other way. And it was one of the hardest but best decisions in my life. And that led me to finding the right therapist and starting to work on my trauma, which I didn't even really, at that point didn't even really realize that it existed.
Yeah, I think so many of us use substances to mask the trauma. And so we do it for so long, it just becomes a coping mechanism that we almost don't even realize that that's why we started doing those things, or that's, why we started using. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think we all have some sort of trauma in our past. And it's important to deal with that honestly and openly. And it's tough. I think that's the hardest thing. But so many people in recovery, and I say this all the time, I have so much respect for, because they do face that stuff and deal with the stuff that so many people will just, stuff and ignore sometimes their whole lives, So I think it's very cool that as part of the recovery process, so many people get in touch with those issues and face them head on. It takes a lot of courage.
I agree, and you said it perfectly. And so many folks just are walking around in autopilot and don't realize that why they're suffering,
Exactly.
and are doing anything they can to numb the pain.
Yeah. And we all have it. And I think that's, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you grow up in chaos, then that becomes normal. When you grow up around traumatic events, or that becomes your normal. So you don't even realize until you learn a new normal that was wrong, or that was traumatic.
Indeed. And it's helpful to have a third party that can sometimes illuminate that stuff for you, that you may not even realize was unhealthy. So go ahead.
Oh, I would just say, I hear so much in my professional work, where people end up around 18 years old, maybe going to college, or maybe moving out of their house and living with another person, and realizing, wait, your family doesn't throw bottles at your head to wake you up in the morning. Your family doesn't pass the meth pipe at the funeral.
How strange.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Aunt Jenny.
No.
So people who are struggling and don't know where to start. Like I hear from so many people, like, okay, I'm ready to do something, what do I do? Or how do I get help? Or sometimes it's just taking that very first step that's the hardest, and then once you get on a path, once you start moving in a positive direction, then, a lot of times things will fall into place, or it makes it easier to know where to go next. But taking that first step can be so difficult sometimes. What do you think is the most helpful, or is there something that you can recommend to people that are listening that are struggling right now, that have realized that they're caught in some negative habits that they need to change, but they're not sure how to do that?
Yeah, you again, that was perfectly said, and I think that the answer was in what you just said, which is just taking a step.
Yeah.
Because that first step is the scariest, because it's in the dark.
Right. Ooh, good point.
But once you finally start to illuminate your path, then man, it becomes easier, and that becomes your new normal, and you start to create a new routine, and you start to rewire the brain to healthier ways of coping. And so it's really just that first ripping the Band-Aid and getting to action, and giving yourself some grace and some love and some encouragement, because you're gonna fall, and you're gonna slip, and you're gonna try to go backwards, because that's what you're used to, and that's homeostasis for you. And so your world is gonna magnetically pull you back to that until you rewire.
I love what you said too about giving yourself grace. I think a lot of times we're so hard on ourselves, and the people around us, if we've messed up enough, are hard on us too. And so it's really easy to just think, oh, I'm a piece of shit, what's the point? But especially when you struggle and relapse and that kind of thing. But I think really, like you said, giving yourself grace and giving other people grace who are also going through it is such a huge part of it. Not being so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Oh, and you think about the way that we talk to ourselves, and how that impacts us, and how long we have been, or maybe whose voice that is. Maybe it's not even our voice. Maybe it's a voice we heard it growing up as a kid, but those words really matter.
Yeah. Boy, that's so true.
Our thoughts, we often distort our thoughts, and have these thought distortions that tells us, oh, no one cares about you, no one loves you, you're a piece of shit, it's useless, why even try? And learning to identify those thought distortions and then reframe them to something more useful is probably one of the biggest components of me working through what I needed to work through.
Absolutely. And also overcoming the shame that goes along with addiction so often. When you feel like you have really fucked up, and which, a lot of times is part of the addiction process, then you feel like you need to run from that. And the guilt and the shame, I think, can be so powerful. But realizing that all of that, when you're moving in a positive direction, all of that just becomes a part of who you are, and makes you stronger. While we're talking, I recorded my bedroom, the super, high quality operation we got going on here. But anyway, So I'm looking right now at something that I did with my therapist about a year ago. She brought a couple of like ceramic bowls and a hammer, and we smashed them with a hammer, just so that they were in big chunks, and then painted each of the pieces and glued the bowl back together. And so I've got this bowl it's like a patchwork of all these different colors, and it's got all these cracks and a few spots where there's holes where, I smashed it a little too hard. But it's such a great visual reminder that we're all broken, and we all have all these different parts of us that, some we're proud of, some we're ashamed of, but all of those pieces become who we are. And it's a beautiful, useful thing. Like, I've got stuff inside it. My bowl holds things, so it's useful. It's got all these colors, so it's pretty. But it's made up of all these broken pieces that I don't have to be ashamed of, that I can be proud of, because they make a different piece of me. And hopefully that's a part of what people realize in the recovery process, that it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing who you are and trying to be better and moving forward and picking up the pieces.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a powerful tool your therapist did with you. That's awesome.
She's wonderful. We had her on a few months ago, our first episode of 2022, in fact. And yeah, she's great. I love her. So, and actually, while we're on it, that's a huge part of the recovery process too, is finding someone that you can work with, because it's not always the first person that you connect with in therapy that will be the one that works for you.
Oftentimes we end up with treatment-induced trauma.
Ooh.
Where we're going looking for someone that's going to help us when our skin is crawling, and we finally get the courage. We're finally out of the pre-contemplative state, and we get the courage to say, okay, I need help. And then you end up with some asshole.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Or you end up in a program with a bunch of shysters, and it's really unfortunate. And, and it causes people to never want to get help again. Oh, I finally reached out to get help, and here I go again. Same old thing. I can't trust.
Do you see a lot?
Sorry,
do you see a lot of people that are repeat, that have been in recovery before and are back again?
Yeah, and that's the nature of the beast, right? It's a reoccurring brain disorder. I think that's a part of, we have to stop looking at recovery as this linear thing. It's not, this is a reoccurring brain disorder, and people are using because of underlying issues that have to be resolved.
Right.
And so, yeah, we do see that a lot, but there are some components that I think change a person's chances of less times. But everyone is so different, and everyone's trauma or everyone's underlying issues are so different that some people may be able to get it the first time, and some people may need to do it 9 or 10 times. One of my favorite clients was 71 years old, and he got his shit together down in Skid Row at 71.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
To me, that I know a lot of people look at that as a failure, but to me, I think that's a wonderful thing. That, in fact, someone just posted on Facebook, I don't know, it was something like, fell down 7 times, got back up 8 times or whatever, like we all fall down. It's not about the falling down. That's going to happen in all of life for everybody. That happens. We have times when we fall down, when things don't work out the way we want them to, or, whatever, but you just got to get back up one more time. And as long as you keep trying, I think that's what's important.
It's the most important. You're 100% right. It's not about how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. And it's also about the nuance and looking at situations in a nuanced way. That man was just not a 71-year-old and this is an analogy for being able to look at everyone through this lens. That man was just not a 71-year-old who wasted his life and then decided at 71 to get clean and sober. That was a man who grew up in the 70s and 80s in South Central as a Black man.
Wow.
And whose kids were, one of them died of stomach cancer when she was a baby. The other one was shot and murdered in his in the front yard.
Oh
right
my
right in the
gosh.
beginning when the Crips and Bloods were really at its
Yeah.
height. Um,
Oh,
and so the man used to deal with the fact that both of his children were dead,
yeah.
and there wasn't a lot of great psychiatry and psychologists in South Central in the 80s,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And so he ended up where so many people end up that don't have money. They end up in
Mm-hmm.
jail to deal with their
Mm.
mental health and their addiction issues.
Oh, and I can't imagine that's a very effective place to do it.
It's unfortunately not.
Wow. So what's next for you? What do you see in your future?
Well, probably once a month I come home and tell my family that I'm quitting the industry and gonna sell RVs or motorhomes or something, or planes. But I get my shit together and go back every Monday. Um,
Good for you.
so I want to expand services here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to expand services here in San Luis Obispo County, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a great need of help up here, and not a lot of care. And the problem, the fentanyl epidemic, and
Mm.
the teen mental health crisis is really
Yeah.
it's just inflamed in this county, and there's really no services to help. And so coming back to my home base where my roots are and seeing if I can't make a difference here before we set sail on a new adventure. And then
That's awesome.
we're doing a lot with From War to Peace again, which is a
Yes. Tell everybody about that. I love the story behind it.
yeah, my uncle started it in 2010. And it's a company where we recycle weapons and turn them into jewelry, and then promote a portion of the proceeds to various charities that mean something special to us. And that's how you and I think I reached out to you in the beginning for From War to Peace. Maybe. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the Pacific Solstice, our other
I think
mental
it was
health
Pacific
company.
Solstice, but then we started talking about From War to Peace, and then that was when you, um, I think you asked me to look through the collection and see what I thought would be a good piece to represent the
Yeah, that's
foundation.
right. And you found the Blue Wave, and we changed
Yeah.
that name to Bradley's Wave, and that's just been such a cool piece for us to be able to promote Bradley's house and the Knoll Family Foundation, and kind of a full circle for me, just because I started at such a young age uh, with Sublime, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been a part of my life, a part of raising my children, my marriage, and my uh,
Mm.
everything. And so, yeah, it was really neat to be able to be back to a place of connection with Sublime in just such a different way in
Absolutely.
meeting you and Papa Jim and Jakob and everyone else.
Mm. Yeah. And I really encourage everybody to go. It's fromwartopeace.com, right? Is the website?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, From War to Peace. Go check it out. You've got a ton of great stuff. I always hit up that site when it's time for Christmas or for gifts for people. My kids both have the Bradley's Wave. I've got all kinds of stuff. You do such a great job with that, and I love knowing that
That's
these
very
are,
sweet, Kelly. Yeah.
yeah. It's just knowing that these things
It,
were something intended for destructiveness, and now it's something beautiful. I think it's such a great analogy of all of us, our lives, or as people.
Bradley's house was such a perfect partner in peace, as we call our collaborators.
Mm.
Um, Similar to Homeboy Industries, which is another organization that we work with, and we make their pendants and their jewelry.
Oh my gosh,
But
so
it's all
weird
about
that you mentioned that, because somebody just told me about one of the guys who is a part of that and suggested that we have him on our show. Greg
You really
Boyle,
should.
maybe?
Oh,
Okay,
well,
that's good to know. I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you, but when you said that, I'm like, what are the odds? that you would mention
Father
that.
Greg Boyle, I recommend you all read his book. I think it's called Tattoos from the Heart or Tattoos on the Heart. But he's a very, very special man. I've met him a couple of times, and being around him in person and watching the way that he carries himself and how he treats other people. It's very special. It's something different, and you almost feel like you're in the presence of someone like Mother Teresa, to be quite honest. But
Wow.
he started Homeboy Industries and would, back in the 70s and 80s, drive around on a bicycle and go up to the gang members on the streets and say, hey, what can we do to get you guys off the streets? And eventually found out that the best way to help these folks was by providing them with jobs. And their motto, jobs, not jails, took off.
Nice.
And for multiple decades, he's been down in Skid Row, right next to the county jail. And in fact, I used to run a program in LA County Jail, and we would send people that got out right to Homeboy Industries, and they could go there and immediately sign up. They could get a job. They could get tattoo removal, so they could have the gang tattoos removed from their bodies, so they were no longer a target.
Wow.
And man, this really, talk about reducing recidivism. Oftentimes, all the therapy, all of that comes second to giving someone a purpose, and that's what happened. And so, yeah, I recommend you guys check out Homeboy Industries.
Nice. So as I interrupted
Greg
you,
Boyle would be an amazing person to have on. Yeah.
So you guys from War to Peace has done some work with them also. Is that what you're saying?
We make their Homeboy pendants out of our metal, and all of our metal is from the recycled cabling of a U.S. missile system. And so yeah. And that's what Bradley's Wave is made out of also.
Love that. Very cool. Well, I know Jarett has a question for you that he always asks anybody who comes on that is a fan of Sublime, and I will.
You're going
to
be no different.
Okay.
No pressure, but yeah.
No pressure, but lots of pressure. No, it's no pressure at all. We'll just all judge you. So obviously Brad was a big influence to you musically, as he was to a lot of our listeners. So to get an idea of, kind of where everybody's coming from in their fandom, I always ask, if you came across somebody who had never heard of Sublime before, and they were going to give you one opportunity to represent this band to maybe hook them, what one song would you play for them?
That is tough. Just because I'm Sublime crazy, it would probably depend on the person, but it would definitely be something from 40 Ounces or Robin the Hood. Again, depending on the person. I don't want to be. I gotta say BadFish, just because of the iconicness of it. It's the most iconic song from that album I can think of. And I think that'd be the most palatable to get people in, before we hit them with date rape or something.
That's a great answer.
It is. It's a great answer. It's an absolute classic, and really, it's just a fun, cheeky way for me to ask, "What's your favorite song?"
Tough to pick a favorite, though.
I would just say that I could put on 40 Ounces of Freedom and I'm a Happy Man. That whole album it's hard to find a better album, I'll tell you. My top three best albums. Yeah.
It's definitely one of those ones you can listen from start to finish.
Absolutely. That's a good question, Jarett.
Oh, thank you.
He comes up with some good ones every once in a while. Well, thank you so much, Tom. I know you're a busy man. In fact, you're on vacation right now to celebrate your birthday. Thank you so much for taking the time with us and for sharing that with us. I know there's a lot of people who listen to the show that do struggle or have a loved one that struggles. So it's really helpful to have a point of view like yours. Let people know that they're not alone, that they don't have to be ashamed, and how to get back on the right track. So thank you for taking the time with us. Thank you for all that you do for the foundation. We truly, truly appreciate you.
You know, it's an absolute pleasure, and it's been a wonderful journey being friends with you and your family and watching all that you guys do. And I can't wait to see how Brad House grows and help so many other people.
Thank you.
If anyone that's listening out there needs any support for mental health or addiction issues, you guys can call Aspire San Luis at 805-329-5595. That's 805-329-5595. And then, if you want to check out the jewelry, go to fromwartopeace.com. And if you want to check out the music, you can search Pacific Coast High, or the PCH Collective is the album name, on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and everything else.
Highly recommend that. Highly recommend that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Tom. Have a wonderful day.
I appreciate you guys. See you at the next family reunion, Jarett.
Absolutely. I'll see you then, man. Thanks. Well, Kelly, once again, that didn't disappoint. I'll tell you, I have a lot of fun every time we record an episode of Bradley's House, but when we get an opportunity to meet somebody that I'm unfamiliar with and hear their story and just kind of get to meet them for the first time here on the show, it's really a treat for me. And certainly this was no difference. What an amazing story, and someone who's out there right now really making a difference. It was really cool to hear.
Absolutely. And like I said, Tom is a good friend. He's doing great things in the industry. He's got a good head on his shoulders. And it's such a privilege to see people like that. And it just kind of restores your faith because, as Tom even mentioned, there's a lot of shady people in this industry. And so to have somebody, that can just stand up and say, this is the way it should be, it really restores your faith in it. So always good to talk with people like that. And I think it's always a helpful reminder to all of us, to seek out people like that, because they do exist.
Absolutely. And he gave us some amazing information on ways to get in contact with him and the different things that he has going on. And Anna will include those links in the description of the show. So make sure you check out everything that Tom's got going on.
Yes.
Certainly pretty awesome. Now, we've got a lot of stuff going on, Kelly. Some of it we can share. Some of it we're waiting to make announcements on. But what's going on with the Nowell Family Foundation coming up here?
There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. As you said, I can't really go into detail about everything until it's all finalized. But I am super excited about Cali Roots coming up next month, May 26th through 29th in Monterey, California. We did Cali Roots for the first time in 2019 and had a blast. Such a great group. They're so much fun to work with, the people that put it on. Of course, we've had Dan Sheehan on the show before, and his wonderful wife, Amy. She does such a fantastic job. And they've got a great team, a great crew, and it's always a great vibe. Like, everybody there is super stoked to be there, and the music is great. Everything's so well run. I am super excited to go back. And this year it's going to be 4 days, which should be just fantastic. I'm pretty sure by the fourth day, I'll be exhausted, but actually probably by the first day I'll be exhausted, but I'm super excited.
Tired now.
Yeah, I know. I'm tired just talking about it. I'm so excited to hear the music, to meet everybody. It's really going to be a great time. So I highly encourage anybody who hasn't yet to get your tickets for Cali Roots, May 26th through 29th. And it's going to be a great time.
No, I just want to point out to everybody that we'll be out there. We'll have the booth set up. We'll have T-shirts and hoodies and hats and pins and socks and all sorts of amazing merchandise that every penny goes directly towards the Nowell Family Foundation and getting Bradley's House up and open. Now, we're going to be out there for 4 days, guys, but I'm just throwing this out there for all of our loyal listeners and fans. If you guys come and buy all of our shit on day one, then we really have like 3 days to just kind of hang out and listen to the music. So, if you guys want to do something, if you want to do something nice for Kelly, hit the booth hard day one. And then we'll just spend the rest of the time listening to music and eating like French fries and chocolate covered bananas and stuff.
Sounds good to me. So go grab your tickets at CaliforniaRootsFestival.com. And we look forward to seeing you all there.
Absolutely. And of course, guys, the reason why we put this podcast on is so we can go ahead and let you guys know about all the things that are going on with the Nowell Family Foundation in our efforts to get Bradley's house up and open. Make sure you're following social media. The Nowell Family Foundation is everywhere. You just go ahead and type it in your little search bar there. You can visit our website, the knowellfamilyfoundation.org, or you can just go ahead and type it into your Google machine and it'll get you right to us. And you
Did
guys
you
can
say
find
Google
out.
machine?
Yeah, the Google machine.
Just checking.
Are
Go
people
on.
using their computers for other things?
I'm just saying. Google machine. You sound
Yeah,
like an old man.
Yeah, fire it into your Google machine and it'll get you right to us. You'll find out everything that's going on. You guys can find out how you can pick up hats, t-shirts, and other awesome merch that goes directly towards the foundation and getting Bradley's house up and open. Of course, our friends over at Law Records, you can find them at law-records.com. You can pick up your copy of the compilation album, The House That Bradley Built. I don't know if there's any vinyl left at this point, but I know there was some. So you guys should hop over on Law Records website and check it out for yourself. And of course, Kelly, at the end of every podcast, we like to leave our listeners with a little tune. And it typically comes from an artist from Law Records and usually right off the compilation. Today will be no different. Kelly, what's everybody going to be going out on today?
Today, from the compilation album, which, you know, is our favorite album, from The House That Bradley Built, we have the incredible band OAR covering BadFish.
Tom, this one's for you, man. You said it was your jam, so we're rocking it out. Thanks for coming on the show. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you can find everything right in the link tree in the description of the show. Until next time, I'm Jarett Orr. She is Kelly Nowell. We are out of time. You don't have to go home, but you got to get out of Bradley's house.
Grab a hold of me, tell me that I'll never be set free, but I'm a parasite, creep and crawl, I step into the night, 2 pints of booze, tell me are you a bad fish too? No money to spend, I hope the night will never end. Lord knows I'm weak, won't somebody get me off of this reef? Baby, you're a big blue whale. Just sing to it. Just sing to it instead. Grab the reef when all the diving fails. I wish I'd never learned. The water's too polluted with germs. I dive deep when it's 10 feet over.